Hello, welcome to the Grow Your Wealthy Mindset podcast, where it is all about helping amazing physicians just like you create a wealthy life free from burnout and with the financial security to practice medicine on your own terms. I'm your host, Dr. Elisa Chiang. Hello, and welcome back to the Grow Your Wealthy Mindset podcast. I have a special guest this week. It is my husband, Nathan Chu. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Nathan. I'm her husband. It's been a long time trying to do this, right? Like there was always a little bit of resistance on my part to join in, but I am happy to be here. I'm excited to be here.
So what prompted this podcast recording is that we were actually in the car. We just drove to Best Buy to pick up a phone, and it is actually the weekend before Thanksgiving. So before Black Friday, but the Black Friday sale is already coming out. And so that's a good time to get a phone on sale. And so we went to get the phone. And as we were leaving Best Buy, I said, "Merry Christmas." And then I kind of commented on the fact that, so my husband and I, we actually got married pretty young. We got married when I was 20, he was 21. And there was a long time where I would actually tell him what I wanted for a holiday gift or a birthday gift or an anniversary gift. And then he would get it for me, or I would actually buy it for myself and then say, "This is my, anniversary gift. This is my birthday gift."
Well, to be clear, like at the beginning it was like, oh, get this for me. And then over time it's like, hey, I'm going to get this and this will be your Christmas gift for me. And I'm like, cool, great. I don't have to shop for anything. That's awesome. I love it.
Right. And then there came to be a point where, we just, when we want something, we just go get it. And I don't necessarily like ask for something for Christmas or say like, "Oh, this is my Christmas present or my birthday present." And so I just kind of remarked on that and said, "Well, I guess this is becoming an adult."
And then I said, well, it's not really about being an adult to some degree. It's about having a level of fiscal responsibility where you have disposable income. You can spend things however way you want, whenever you want. You don't necessarily have to like save up for that special gift and special occasion. Like the idea is for some people who might be living paycheck to paycheck, they really need to scrimp and save. And then they want to associate that reward of saving with an event like Christmas or birthday or whatever to give them that sense of joy of achieving, the results of their hard work and all their saving and stuff like that. And we instill that with our kids, right? We teach kids like, oh, okay, you can't just buy necessarily anything you want at any time. You need to wait for Christmas, or you wait for your birthday or whatever to have that sense of responsibility. So in that sense, I understand where Elisa was saying, hey, it's like becoming an adult, but I think it's more than that.
Yeah. And I realized, as you pointed out, that is totally true. There are lots of adults who still wait for a special occasion in order to get themselves something nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I like to share a little story from our past where, this was before we were married. And I was visiting Elisa's family in Cleveland, Ohio. We were living in LA going to college at the time. And it was around Christmas time. So I thought to myself, okay, well, she has a brother and a sister and a mom and a dad. I'm going to go ahead and bring Christmas gifts for everybody. And I really worked hard to try and think about, who their personalities, what they might like and all that. I didn't really tell Elisa all this. I did this all in kind of secret as a surprise. And after spending kind of a lot of time and a decent amount of money getting gifts that I thought would work for all of them, when Christmas came and I gave them all their gifts, her dad said something to the effect of, "Oh, is Nathan trying to start a new tradition?" And then I realized, oh, I guess this is a family that doesn't really do Christmas gifts, which is fine. But I was like, I don't want to start any traditions. Maybe they just give gifts whenever, or maybe they don't. But it just kind of highlighted this idea of we don't have to necessarily wait for a special event like Christmas or a birthday to give gifts. We can, or we can still give a gift for those occasions. But then also if we have the money and we have the savings and stuff to spend whenever we want, we can just get a gift when we need it or want it.
Yeah. So my family doesn't really give Christmas gifts. I feel like there was times where maybe I got my sister something or she got me something. But yeah, growing up, we got Christmas gifts from adults. We didn't get Christmas gifts for each other. And then as we became adults, we just stopped completely with the gift giving. Like I don't get gifts from my parents now. And that doesn't say that they don't get me things. We don't feel the need to just buy something because there's an occasion or a
Right.
holiday or even an event.
Yeah, that's what I was about to get into. Like, I don't think your parents, like, definitely even before you were an adult, they didn't always necessarily got you something for Christmas. And do you remember the last time you got something from them as like a birthday gift?
No.
Okay. So this is what I'm trying to get at with her father's comment of like, oh, I guess Nathan's starting a new tradition. It really felt at the time like I've stepped into a world or a family where gift giving isn't that big of a thing. And to be fair, in my family, that was also not the case. Most of the gifts I got weren't necessarily from my mom or dad. They were from other adults, like aunts or uncles or things like that. And I'm an only child, so I didn't have any brothers or sisters. But like birthday gifts or Christmas gifts weren't really from my parents. They were from just other adults.
So let's get back into the subject of when we buy things for ourselves or when we want things, should we wait until some holiday or birthday or anniversary or an event so we have a reason to, quote, treat ourselves? Or do we just get what we want whenever we want it?
Yeah, okay. So this is really tricky. I think every person, every adult, everybody who is trying to manage their finances and manage their money has to find that right sense of balance. You don't want to say I'm going to treat myself every day to a Starbucks because like that might end up racking up costs,
But there are
or
people
whatever it
do.
is. Oh yeah, I'm sure there are, and sometimes you need that. Again, this is what I'm trying to get at. Like each person has their own individual needs and desires, and there has to be a sense of self-regulation there. But acknowledging that and reflecting on that is, I think, really important in the sense of like not limiting yourself entirely to only special occasions to get yourself a treat, to get yourself a gift, to reward yourself for the saving and the scrimping and whatever you needed to do to enjoy life. But if you do it too much, then it makes those rewards kind of meaningless, I would say.
And let's just be clear for the audience. I definitely spend a lot more money than my husband does.
Yeah, no, I don't spend much money at all. It is an interesting kind of dynamic we have, and I personally don't really need a lot of money. I don't spend a lot of money. I'm just, as long as I have enough to like live a very simple life, I'm good.
So I remember early on, I was actually really big into budgeting and actually set specific amounts that we would spend each month in each category. And there was a line item, fun items, Elisa, fun items, Nathan. And essentially you got $100 a month. Actually, probably it started less than that since we got married so young, but
Sounds about right. Yeah,
currently
yeah.
it's still 100.
It's my allowance. It's my husband allowance. Yay.
But it's currently $100 a month because you don't even spend that.
Yeah, no, I mean, since I spend so little money, I think I just accumulated a surplus. But then that would give me the ability every now and then to be like, okay, then I can buy this big ticket item. I wouldn't be over budget because I had spent so little beforehand. And that kind of ties back to this idea. Like, it wasn't that I was necessarily saving for a big ticket item. It's just the fact that for me and my personal philosophy about how I consume material goods or services, I don't want a lot. So then when I want something, then I buy it. And so I don't have to wait for Christmas. I don't wait for a special occasion. I kind of don't have to wait to save because I'm just kind of doing that. This has actually caused some disagreements because I don't necessarily buy things at the best prices because I kind of don't care about that. And we've had a lot of arguments about that. The point is that since I just kind of have this automatic saving feature, then I can just buy it when I want to. And that, I think that ties into like, do you treat yourself exactly when you want, or do you have to save for it? It's tough. Each person has a different level of comfort for that.
Yeah, it was even at the point where, I mean, we don't do this anymore, but at some point, there were some months where I would be like, hey, can I borrow some of your budget amount?
Yeah, and so then this gets into another interesting aspect of like, if you are financially responsible and you just do your due diligence of not overspending, staying within budget, you will naturally get to a point where we kind of are right now, like where we are kind of looking at things and we don't necessarily have to wait for those special times to buy a phone. We can just buy a phone when we need one.
generally, like, I don't have to rein in Nathan at all when it comes to spending money, like we have bin talking about. But for me personally, I really do spend a lot of time considering whether or not when I purchase something or buy something that it is something that is actually going to bring me like joy and have real value, as opposed to I'm buying something because it's at a discount, or I'm buying something because I think it's something that I should have. I know that when I was a medical student, I certainly bought some equipment like my own otoscope and fundoscope because I thought as a medical student, as a good medical student, like I should have all this stuff. And frankly, that was probably a waste of money because I don't ever use that now as an ophthalmologist. And anytime we needed to use it as a medical student, it was available. So a lot of times I'll hem and haw over buying something, and then I'll ask Nathan his opinion, and he's like,
Yeah, those are definitely fun times I have. It's really tricky because, like I said before, I don't really worry that much about how much something costs. And so as a result, when Elisa's hemming or hawing, I try to act as a sounding board, but she's really just talking to herself, and I just kind of nod along. It's not like I don't care about her worries. It's just that the money part I'm not concerned with. I'm like, do I have the money for it? Okay, I'll spend it. I don't know. Is that wrong? Do you think that's wrong?
I think it's fine because you spend so little money and you have so little monetary desires. But I do think someone, even if they earn a lot, if they have a lot of monetary desires and it is at a much higher price point, like myself, like I love camera equipment, which is pretty expensive. I own a camera that costs more than my engagement ring. So if I just thought, oh, that lens is nice, I'd like to get that lens, and I did that for all the lenses, I would have thousands of dollars of equipment that I rarely, if ever, used. So I think the answer to that is really it depends. It depends on what you like to spend money on and how much you're spending and how much discretionary income you really have.
Do you think it is then worthwhile for people who, you know, like, let me phrase it this way. Do you think it is okay for people to like spend as much time hemming and hawing like you do over purchases to, arguably their own like sense of stress or the consternation of their loved ones like me?
Well, I think that since I started getting coaching and started coaching myself, I hem and haw a lot less. Would you agree with that?
I do actually. Yeah, coaching has been great in reducing the amount of internal conflict.
And I think it's really because I've realized, well, I always knew that I get to make whatever decision, but I also think I realized that I get to choose to believe whatever I bought was of value and that I'm happy with that purchase afterwards, and kind of let go of any regret or FOMO or whatever. I guess, oh, YOLO, that's the other one.
Not we'll stick with FOMO. Mostly regret. The thing that you were always hemming and hawing about is that later you would say, "Oh, could I have gotten a better deal? Could I have found it at a cheaper price? Could I have gotten more for what I paid?" And I think that insatiable drive can be a little bit draining, but it is good to have to a degree because you don't want to waste money.
Yeah, and I think about how different it is when I'm spending at home and there's not well, any type of like, I can always go purchase this whenever I want, versus when we're traveling and it's like, okay, we're at this shop. I either buy it now, or we're probably not coming back here, or I only have so long before we leave the city and go to the next city. And
Yeah, you don't do good with those constraints. You get a little stressed out over that.
but not more recently.
No, no, yeah, like in the past, I'm thinking back through our whole marriage. Yeah, no, you've gotten a lot better. It's would be interesting to then consider, like, for people who are living paycheck to paycheck when they are trying to come to those decisions about what they can afford. It's a little bit different than our experiences of like traveling.
I mean, I would say now when we're traveling, it's like if it's something I want to do, we just do it. If it's something I want to buy, I just buy it.
Yeah. I mean, that goes back to, getting stuff whenever you want, not having to wait for Christmas or birthdays or any other occasions to do that.
Yeah, it's true. It's definitely also correlated with obviously having more discretionary income. But I would say there were times where I probably hemmed and hawed way more than I should have over pretty low ticket items.
Yes, well, that was definitely something that always bugged me earlier on, like because it was like maybe the difference of just $20, but there are many, many arguments we've had over just the difference of $20. So
So I still like to consider that I'm fairly frugal or efficient with my money, but
I agree.
I was gonna say, even though I spend a lot more than you do,
A
that's good that you
lot
agree.
more. Yeah.
So how do you feel about the fact that I do spend so much more than you? This is not something I've actually asked you directly.
Um, I because of my mindset with money, as I've said before, I don't really care about money to a certain degree. I don't care about how much things cost. I don't have like I know some relationships, some marriages are built and broken based off of agreements and disagreements about money. And so even though you spend a lot more money than I do, as long as it is making you happy and it is not causing financial hardship and ruin, I don't really care. My thing is that, and this is different for other people. I totally get it. But for me, I'm fine working till I die. I don't need to retire. You want us to retire, right?
Yeah, I think part of it is that since I am the one that really manages the money in our household and the finances, and you don't even necessarily know where we're at or what our current net worth is or where our accounts is. I mean, you know where to find all that information because I have that all lined up for you. But
I am the embodiment of the kind of person that isn't like wasteful with money, but isn't smart about money. And therefore wouldn't necessarily like figure out about ROIs or IRAs. I don't even know what letters represent what, right? You can correct me on all that. With all, I remember us going to one of those Fidelity investment financial seminars when we were like 25, surrounded by a bunch of 60-year-olds, and then they praising us, being like, "Oh, we wish we started coming to these when we were your age." And I was just looking around like, I don't know what is going on. I don't know what people are saying whatsoever. None of this makes any sense to me. I'd rather be home playing video games. But, that's just my mindset.
I know it's so funny. I get so much mail for like the AARP and Medicare type stuff because there is definitely mailing lists that assume that I am much older than I am.
But again, that speaks toward how frugal, as you said before, and how invested you are, no pun intended, on our financial freedom and future. And that is something I totally recognize I lack. I am just personally okay, and maybe I will regret these words later on. I'm personally okay with working until I'm like 70 or 80, but like not everyone is suited for that, and thus they need more advice or more help with like how to manage their finances.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just thinking that, well, now I bring in a lot more income than you do, but there was a time where, well, let's see, in residency, I think we were pretty equal on income.
I
So
wouldn't
Nathan,
know.
and so Nathan's a high school teacher, and I'm a physician. I'm an oculoplastic specialist. But definitely when I was in medical school and you were working as a teacher, you were providing more income.
Yeah.
And yet at that point, I was probably still, well, I was definitely still spending more than you were on fun stuff. The question is whether our budgets were the same at that time or I actually still had a higher budget than you did. I'd have to look. And I mean, I could actually look because they're all Excel files.
All I know is that since you were in charge of the finances by that point, because early in our relationship, before we got married, I was in charge of the finances, just tracking everything. And you didn't like how my spreadsheets were organized. So then I was like, fine, you do it. And then from that point on, it for me, based off of my mindset, I'm like, oh, great. I don't have to keep track of anything. As long as I'm making enough money to like enjoy life comfortably, which I was, even with my little husband allowance, later husband allowance, whatever, it was fine. And so back at the time when I was making more money than you, I think you were, spending more money than I was, but like I didn't care. It's like whatever makes you happy, as long as we have enough that we're still saving some money. And again, for me, the simple thing is, oh, we save some money. Oh, save it in a bank. Yes, I know that is wrong. Sorry, but like, there's more to it than just saving a bank. There's all the investment stuff that so much more. So
Yeah, I would say since we've been married that really all the money came in with really was our money and not like your money versus my money.
yeah,
But we also got married very young.
yeah, yeah. That I think that helps contribute to it. There were times, like, again, I think what it came down to is you weren't critical about anything I purchased. You're critical about how I purchased it. Like if I bought a pair of pants for like however much dollars and there was like the same pair of pants on sale at another store, I just couldn't be bothered to go to that other store. And you're like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, it's fine.
Yes, this was a very specific incident when we went to the mall so that he could buy khaki pants. And he just walked into, I think the store was called Structure. And it was, everything there was like pretty pricey. Like I think the pair of khaki pants you picked up were $90. And this was back in the 1990s where you could get a pair of khaki pants for like $20 or $40, like still like a good quality pair. And he just picked it up and he's like, oh, let me just see if this fits. And then we can go. And I was like, really? You want to spend $90 on a pair of khakis?
See, to me, it was worthwhile because the extra, I guess, 40 or $60 or however much was like, I don't have to go around walking the mall and trying on clothes. Like my time was more valuable for me.
Yeah, your time was more valuable when you were a college student, when you actually had lots of time, which but the thing is, the fact of the matter is, it was because it was the first store you walked into. If the first store you walked into was Old Navy, you would have also picked up a pair of khakis and then like, oh, this is fine. And that pair of khakis would have been like $20.
That's true. That's absolute facts. You got it.
So yes, I remember we had a big argument at the time because I was like, well, you can't just pick up the first thing, not even knowing what prices are, and then buy it. And you have no idea what quality you're buying for what price and whether or not this is a good value.
Yeah, and I've grown from that. Wouldn't you say? I've learned a little bit
Yeah.
from that. Yeah.
Yes, you
Yeah.
definitely learn from that. But I
I've
think
I've I've learned enough just to not piss you off anymore when I make purchases. I think that's the actual answer there.
but I think it's generally true that when you buy something, you want to make sure that you're buying something at a good value.
Yeah. No, I think I agree. I guess the question is, some people will limit their purchases, not necessarily on the value of the product, like in terms of money and the product, but like how much happiness it will give them. And just to tie back to what we said before, so then they feel like they might need a save for a special event. So they feel like, oh, I can reward myself now.
Right, because sometimes you're paying more for the convenience and the convenience is worth what you're paying, or you're paying more to have whatever product is in that environment. If you get an ice cream cone at amusement park, it's going to cost way more than the ice cream cone that you, well, buying ice cream in the grocery store is, a completely different league, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, oh, ice cream truck is coming. The little kids here and they want to go out, and it's like, no, we have ice cream in the freezer, but it's the ice cream truck.
Yeah, and it's funny because I mean, we've spent a lot on food, on fine dining. Not always, but I enjoy good food, and my parents enjoy good food. But I don't think they would ever bring themselves to actually go eat at a Michelin star restaurant.
I mean, to them, it's not worth that much money, I guess. Also, your mom just likes to cook. That's what she says.
Yeah, my mom does like to cook. She doesn't necessarily prefer to eat out because she doesn't feel like it's as healthy, which she's correct. But it's funny because dad was definitely the one where he watched kind of how much was spent. And I feel like he has gotten a lot better as he's gotten older to be a little bit more free with how he spends money. But he's still someone who I don't know that he necessarily splurges in that way.
He splurged on that Lexus though at one point, right? Like you were coming back, we were coming back from college, and you're like, what the heck is a Lexus doing in the driveway?
Well, it wasn't just the Lexus that was in the driveway. It was the big screen TV and the new leather furniture. And I came home from for winter break freshman year of college, and there was just a lot of money suddenly spent where I was just like, wait a minute, what happened? But basically, I guess my parents had thought that paying for college would be a lot worse than it was, and the amount that it was ended up not being as bad as they thought. So I don't have my parents here to defend on how they did their spending.
Well, I mean, again, that I think that still ties to the idea of your mindset. So, like, whether or not you think, "Oh my gosh, I have a bunch of financial burdens, so I can't buy this gift or this reward or this treat for myself," or it's like, "Hey, I've set aside enough money. I'm typically very responsible about my spending, and so just because it's a random Thursday, I should enjoy that Starbucks latte. I don't do it every day, but maybe I do it that day. That's fine."
I mean, spending money on things that bring us value certainly brings us joy and happiness. But I do think we have to watch if we're spending money because we're feeling bad and we just want to feel better.
Oh, that's what, buffering? Is that what you've called it before? Something like that?
Yeah. Yeah. Total coach phrases. Yeah. So buffering is when you do something in order just to kind of avoid whatever emotion you're feeling so that you can feel better. So some people buffer by getting food. Some people buffer with alcohol. Some people buffer with sweets. Some people buffer with shopping.
So then how does somebody know that they want like a treat and like it's not because of buffering, they just want a treat?
So you really know you're buffering when you have a net negative consequence. So if you are buffering with food, you're probably overweight. If you're buffering with shopping, you're probably racking up some credit card debt or finding it harder to meet expenses, things like that. But if you have a lot of income, it's possible that you could buffer with shopping and not necessarily have a negative consequence of not having enough money. It could be that you just find that you're having a lot of stuff that you never use, or that, I mean, what it really comes down to is you're feeling bad, you're feeling bad, and you just want to buy something to feel better. If you notice that as a habit, then I would say you're probably still buffering, even if it's not necessarily creating a negative consequence. But typically, it will create a negative consequence because by you not dealing with that negative emotion doesn't go away, it stays there. And so you continue to buffer and you end up doing to excess. And when you do things to excess, generally a negative consequence will come up.
Sure. Okay, then so what about somebody, let's like sidestep the negative stuff with buffering. And somebody really wants something. They just want it not because of, negative things. They don't necessarily want it to compensate for something or whatever. If we go back to the idea of childhood, they really want that game or that toy. And as an adult, they could be really want that big screen TV or that Lexus. That's fine. Again, trying to get back to what this conversation started with, like, what are the parameters for a person being able to like say like, okay, I'm just going to buy it. I'm going to get it now versus like, oh, I need to save it for a special occasion. I mean, obviously I need to wait until I have enough money. So it's a financially responsible in both situations. But what's the difference between those two? Like, I'm just going to get it. I do have the money, so I'm going to get it now versus, oh, let me wait till my birthday.
I don't think we ever have to wait for a special occasion and get something we want. I think if it's something really big ticket and we've got to save for it, then yes, you've got to save the money. But once you have the money, there are a lot of people who they love cars and expensive cars and they want, a Lamborghini. And once they get the money for the Lamborghini to the point that they've set that money aside and it's not going to affect their, daily living habits or expenses, then you get the Lamborghini. And yeah, you don't have to wait for a birthday or anniversary or some kind of reason where you can justify the expense. You justify it because you have found the assets to pay for it and you've earned it. And it'll bring you joy. And that's where you value money. So that's where you spend your money on.
And so then another interesting thing to sidestep from there is that I don't think either of us are saying like, oh, it's Christmas, so don't get something, or it's someone's birthday. Like, you can still get something and celebrate positive events with rewards or whatever, right? It's just that if you have something you want and you have the finances to do it, you don't have to wait for an occasion, right?
Right. Yeah. And also, I think it's knowing, I mean, especially when it comes to gifts, it's knowing the person that you're giving the gift to, or if it's your spouse, kind of knowing their expectations, right? Because at this point, we don't get gifts for each other, but neither of our love languages is gift giving or receiving gifts.
Well, I mean, do we want to bring up the Pearl story? I don't know if you want to do that here. I already said it. You know what? Let's do it. So basically, Elisa did tell me, I think at one point, that she didn't really like pearls, but I didn't register it or something, and I think it was just part of random conversation we had. So I think it was a birthday gift. I bought her some pearls for a necklace, and then it was like,
Oh my gosh, you really remember the story completely.
oh yeah, am I remembering the story wrong? Okay, then you tell it. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't actually remember if it was birthday or anniversary, but it was one of the two. And so your thought was you knew that that pearls is not something that I generally like, but I really do generally like jewelry. And so
Right.
you wanted to change my mind by finding like something
Oh,
that was really pretty,
that's
that was
right.
pearls, and give
Yeah.
it to me as a gift. So then
Yeah.
I would learn to like pearls, something I didn't like. I don't know why you had this idea that you wanted to change my mindset on it, but you got
I was
me a
young and
pair,
dumb.
right? So you got me a pair of pearl earrings. And I
Oh, they were
being,
earrings. Oh, that's right.
yeah, you don't even remember what you got me.
It was such a traumatic experience. I've tried to repress it. This podcast is bubbling it back up. So, I'm misremembering things because I've repressed this memory.
Well, in my personal integrity of wanting to be honest with someone that I wanted to spend my life with and not wanting you to spend money on pearls, uh, you said, well, it's fine. We can take them back, and you can get something else that you actually really like. Because I didn't want to feel like I had to wear them because he gave them me and tell him that I loved them when, I mean, and they were pretty pearl earrings. It's just that I'm really not that into pearls. So we went back to the jewelry store, and apparently what you could do is you could exchange them for something, but you had to exchange it for something that was double the value of whatever you're exchanging. So it's not, I think the pearls were around $200, which, I mean, it was a lot. We were freshmen or sophomores in college. Like, I thought it was ridiculous for you to spend that kind of money actually on
I
me,
mean, I
which,
spent $90 on khaki. So, this was at a time I didn't understand how to like value money and all that. So,
right. Well, we can also just say that you want to be really generous,
yeah,
uh, but we were
that
certainly
too.
not going to return the earrings so that we could buy something that was $400.
See, and
So,
probably me back then was like, why not? And because I just didn't really understand.
well, so I still have the earrings and I do wear them from time to time, though honestly, I can't remember the last time I wore them.
And then I think from there, the rule was, if you're going to buy me something over $100, I needed to consult you first. Like in other words, no more surprise gifts.
Especially no more surprise expensive gifts. But yeah, we just made a rule that, and this again was just when we were dating, not when we
Yeah,
were
this is
married.
not. Yeah, this is before marriage. It's
But
crazy.
but yeah, I do believe the rule was like, don't spend more than $100 without actually making sure that's exactly what I want.
It's a fair rule. It makes sense. It goes back to the idea of you got to know what the person and what their values are if you're going to give them something.
But anyway, so if you do have a spouse who really expects to get something nice for their birthday or nice for anniversaries, then you may want to think about whether or not you want to honor that or not. And just understand that even if gift giving isn't necessarily your love language, if it's your spouse's love language and you love your spouse and you want to show that love, that might mean changing a little bit of how you spend money.
Yeah, absolutely. I think yeah, if they want a gift, if, and you want that relationship to continue, you probably need to give them a gift. I can't speak as eloquently as Elisa about this. I don't, but like it just, yeah, if they're expecting something from you for their birthday, you probably should give them that.
And I don't want to make it sound like you're like buying their love, but it is, people have different thoughts about, obviously what their spouses do, the actions they take. And so if you want to show love, you do want to find out whatever your spouse's love language is and express love in that love language. And this comes out of, oh gosh, I don't remember the title of the book. It's like the 5 love languages.
I thought there were 7.
Or is there 7?
I don't remember. You had us read this way back when. Was this is still before we were married, right? Or was it after?
No,
Maybe it was after.
I think it was after.
Okay.
But I guess to kind of sum things up, in terms of the upcoming holidays, gift giving is always a personal decision. It's not something that we do a lot of in my family, but there are families where that is the norm and the tradition. And it may be a norm or tradition that you agree with or don't really agree with, but do take into consideration what other people's thoughts are going to be about whatever gift they receive from you. And just know that not everyone's getting coaching and knows that it's their thoughts that produce their feelings.
True words.
But at the same time, just realize that you have no control over their thoughts as well.
Yeah, you only have control over your own thoughts. So, if you're hesitating on getting yourself something, a gift, whether it's for the holidays or not, just consider where you're at financially and decide how it's going to impact your happiness. Is the value of what you're getting yourself going to be a net positive or net negative?
And I'm also not saying that you have to give a gift to anyone who expects a gift. Just realize how that's going to affect the relationship you have with that person. So maybe people in your office expect gifts from you and you have no desire to give it a gift. That doesn't mean that you need to get a gift because they expect that gift from you.
I mean, all you're doing is bringing up a core memory, which kind of informs my philosophy on gift giving, where back in high school, and I see this with my own students and being a high school teacher, where, you give little tokens of this and that, especially around the holidays. And so I think it was my junior year, I went and bought a bunch of candy canes to give to some friends. But then after spending a lot of my money doing it and kind of feeling the results of that in terms of people who were thankful or kind of dismissive and all that, I was like, wow, I don't know if I want to do this again. Because there was also even the issue of like, who do I give the candy canes to? How large is my circle of friends? Do they think they're my friend that I can give them? Like I wasn't sure. And I realized as an exercise, like this gift giving stuff is hard. So I don't necessarily want to always do it. And then I went to give gifts to all your family, when we were still dating, and they're like, oh, we don't do this. And I'm like, whoa, gosh darn, I guess I don't have to worry about it. This is the best family for me to join because they have the same kind of general feeling about gifts like I do.
All right, this has been fun, but I think probably everyone's done listening to our conversation. So let's see, what were the major points that we kind of discussed? I think one is you don't have to wait for a special occasion to get something that you want. And 2, with the holiday season, so just to consider the relationship you have with people when it comes to gift giving and the relationship you want to have with them. So if you've got a relationship with someone you love, you want to consider what their thoughts are going to be on gift giving. And if it's a relationship that is more of acquaintance or further away or not someone you feel truly connected with, then don't feel pressured at all to give a gift.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to the Grow Your Wealthy Mindset podcast. Let me know if you enjoyed this episode and if you've got other questions for my husband, and maybe we'll do another episode in the future. If there's something specific you want to hear my husband and I talk about in a future podcast, then let me know by sending an email to growyourwealthymindset@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you could share it with your friends and colleagues. And now for the disclaimer. I am not a certified financial planner, accountant, or attorney, and nothing I say should be construed as professional investment, tax, or legal advice. This show is primarily for your education and entertainment. I am a physician, but I'm probably not your physician. So if you need any medical advice, please contact your own physician. Thank you.